Welcome to Campus Channel. Today we're going to be answering your questions for the next hour about the Master in Management at ESSEC here in France. And I'm joined here by Félix Papier, who's the director for the programme, and Matt Shook, a student in his final year. But first of all, we're going to be starting with the pitch. Okay, Félix, are you ready? You've got 60 seconds on the clock. Tell us all about ESSEC.
So, the ESSEC Grande École program is one of the oldest and most prestigious master management programs in the world. So it has just been ranked the third master in the world in the Financial Times ranking last week. And its objective is to educate the next generation of responsible top leaders. And if you look at the particularity of the program, then it's definitely its flexibility. So that means that as a student you have large freedom to choose and design your own curriculum, be it with respect to the courses, the electives, the chairs, but also to the international experience, going to Singapore, going to Rabat, going anywhere else in the world, with respect to the work experience. And this flexibility allows you to design the program according to your interests and what you want to do later on, and to design, choose your career in a startup, in a large corporation, in a family business, in politics, whatever you like. And the proof that this actually works is the diversity of our alumni. So they are more than 60,000 today. They are in any sector in the world and in any country.
Well done, finished just in time. Great, so now it's time for our first question. Matt, if you could read this first one.
I don't speak French, but I'd rather study a more useful language like Mandarin. Is it mandatory to study French? So yes, if you are a non-French speaking student, it is mandatory to take 2 courses in French. That includes the pre start of the MSc French course.
Okay.
So only one.
That's like a sort of beginner thing.
Yeah, and it's it's a more intensive 3 week I believe course, and so you only have to take 1 French course after that, and then you have a few courses that are electives but are very flexible, where you can take a language if you'd like, and you can take it you can take Mandarin at the university. I believe you would have to take it though in French, like going from French to Mandarin, if that's correct, Félix.
So first of all, you can do the whole program in English, so it's not necessarily to speak French. Though, as you said, we would like all students to do at least some French, so there are 2 beginner courses for French. We think that is important. But then beyond that, the students have a very large choice of languages, which you can take in English as a basis, but then with the other language. So you can take Mandarin, you can take whatever other language you are interested in during the program, and that is part of the overall program curriculum. And that does not have to be French, but can be French if you're interested.
Okay.
Yes.
And Matt, where are you from?
I'm from the US.
Okay. So did you study French during your time here?
Some in high school. You know, what is that when you actually get here and you're immersed? Does that count for much? It definitely helped, but I definitely learned a lot as I went here. However, I never in my courses, as Félix said, yes, you don't have to take a single management course in French, and I never felt like in my courses that I was handicapped by not being able to speak French fluently. It was all the professors spoke English, and I would always be able to work in group projects in English without a problem.
Okay, and between the students as well, English is the lingua franca. Everyone's chatting in English.
If you're a French student, you're most likely at lunch and stuff in French, but in the classroom, it's in English.
It's all in
yes.
English. Great. Okay. Can we have a look at the next question, Félix?
Yes. What kind of courses do you offer about CSR? So I guess this is corporate social responsibility. That's a question that is actually often asked. So we have a very large offer on different topics around social and environmental responsibility. So, for example, we have a chair on social entrepreneurship, where students would like to create their own company in the social humanitarian field. We have courses specialized on climate change and how to handle the economic, political, and society consequences on that. We have a sustainability and entrepreneurship track on the Singapore campus. So there's a lot of opportunities to specialize in the different subfields of that, and we know that this is more and more important not only to companies but also to our students. There's a new core course on that topic. and we've currently launched an institutional project to put all of our efforts and research expertise and so on around CSR into one project that we call Together, and that we put at the disposal of our students.
I'm currently taking my second CSR-related course this term, and yeah, it's definitely becoming more of a pressing issue and more of a required talking point across many courses.
Okay, and you spoke just there, Felix, about the Ecole course in CSR. So is that a mandatory course? Does that mean that everyone has to do it?
Yes, that is a course. So we put it in place just after you joined. So for you it was a voluntary course, but then for all the new students that is a mandatory course that we can be taken online about responsible leadership. And that also shows then how you can do more in the different fields, if it's around climate change, if it is around social entrepreneurship, if it is in any other related field. So it's also a kind of springboard or an explanation of what else can you do. So I recommend to do this course in the beginning, and then from there go on to the field that you're interested in.
Okay, great. Let's have a look at maybe this one's for you, Felix. Could you read this out?
I'm in the second year of my bachelor's degree at present, and I would like to know what are the entry requirements. Yes, that is a fairly large question. So in order to be able to apply to the Master Management program, you must have a bachelor's degree. So this is for the international admission part, specific. There are three different parts, the French parallel admission part, the French prépa admission part, and the international admission part. And so I will explain the conditions for the international admission part. So you must have a 3 or 4 year bachelor from outside France. This can be in any field. So actually this is, I think also a point to keep in mind. We recruit students from a very large variety of different fields. That can be management or economics, but that can also be law, psychology, pharmacy, math. I don't know, what's your background?
I studied chemistry at Purdue University. Go Boilermakers! and then I was an engineer. In fact, for 2 years, I worked in engineering.
So you went into work and then went back into studying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so that's quite unexpected. However, for maybe in people's minds. However, from my experience, meeting a lot of people do come from those backgrounds. Whether it's a lot of the international students, or even some French students have done like engineering prépa and stuff like that. Some of my friends that I've talked to, and so they have that mindset coming in, which is able to kind of contrast and for lack of a better term, almost complete a lot of the ideas that are coming through from the students of more economics or business backgrounds.
Okay, great. Yes, there's a real mix of backgrounds coming into the. Sorry, we'll go back to that question where we were talking about the entry requirements. So you can come from any background, as you were saying.
Yes, exactly. You can come from any background. You need a 3 or 4 year international bachelor, and then the whole list of documents that you have to provide. So you have to pass the GMAT exam or similar exam. You have to pass an English exam to be able to show that you actually speak English. So that's an entry requirement. Motivation letter, recommendation letters from 2 other sources, and so on, to put together your whole file. But the most important point is to have an international bachelor to be able to apply to the international admission part.
And that list of documents, I assume we can find on the website.
Yes, exactly.
So check out the ESSEC website. Okay, we'll have a look at the next question. Would you like to read that out?
Of course. Coming to study in France is already a big step, and I'm not sure I want to move again to Singapore or Rabat. Is it possible just to do the whole master in France? Wow, whoever you are, I relate so much. I've actually, I have many friends that are from international backgrounds that then went to Singapore for a period of time. Mostly people in finance, focused on finance or on the management in Asia track are from my experience the 2 biggest ones. However, me, I wasn't planning on either of those, and I'm totally feeling that, because like I'm already abroad. I don't want to go abroad. But as well, I was kind of committed to learning French and really integrating into the culture here, and so I didn't go abroad, and still found everything I needed right here at the Cergy campus, and was able to take all the courses I wanted to.
So you spent your last 3 years here in France?
Yes.
Okay, and so going to Rabat or going to Singapore or even doing the exchange, none of this is obligatory for students?
Well, for French students, so those who apply not through the international part, but through the French admission part, they have to spend at least 6 months abroad. So that can be in Singapore and Rabat, or in an exchange program or in an internship. But for international students, since I already have an international background, that is not obligatory. But then if you ask me if I can recommend it, I think there are a lot of opportunities to also go abroad from France and see a third country. So that's also a very nice challenge. But if someone would like to focus on France, that is possible, and a lot of students do that.
And so Matt, take us through a little bit of where you've been actually. So you're in your 3rd year, even though this is strictly speaking a 2-year course. So can you tell us what you did in your 1st, 2nd and 3rd year?
So first year I did, so since I'm not from a management background, there's the refresher courses. I did all but one of them, and so that was basically a crash course in economics, in marketing, finance, all the very necessary ideas to come in with and to kind of have a base level of understanding for these master's level management courses. So that was my first term here, and then I took 2 terms worth of classes, and 3 terms in a year, finished the first year, and then I started an internship that started in the fall and went through the winter, and then came back last spring for my 4th term, and then now I just have 2 terms left. So it's like 6 terms total, 2 years worth of courses.
Right.
It's just I had that internship in the middle, so that's why.
Okay, so that's why it's
that's why it's extended out. But I mean, I'm in Paris. Like it's. Yeah. What am I going to complain about?
Exactly. It's also always nice to be here. So you did that little internship in the middle. So you sort of jumping around a bit. What was the internship in?
It was in strategy for specifically focused on account management for a. I don't know. I guess I can throw around names. It was for a CAC 40 company. So one of the major companies here in France, so I got to experience firsthand what the French corporate environment looks like. How it differs from where I was in the States, and be able to understand that a little bit. And it was a very valuable experience because I learned a lot of French business lingo, maybe a little bit more particular than what I've learned in my courses at ESSEC. Right. And so that was quite valuable as well. I got to make some strong connections and do some very interesting work.
Cool. Okay. And Felix, would you say that's quite a normal route to take? The fact that you can jump out, do an internship in this term, come back for another semester.
What is normal is that there is no normal route of a student. That's what we meant by flexibility, so that you can really design it on your own. So we have students who start and do all the courses first, and then they do several internships. We have students who do a first term of refresher courses, and then they go abroad to Singapore, and then they come back. We have others who do an internship trimester of courses, an internship trimester of courses, so that you can completely flexibly design.
Great, okay. Let's have a look at the next question. Felix, could you read that out?
As a non-European student, are there difficulties to secure a job in France? I don't know French as of now, but I'm willing to learn French. I think that's a perfect question for you, Matt. I think you said that you would like to work
as a non-French student.
So I'm aiming towards working here when I finish in March. I'm going to start the job hunt. Probably next month, and it's luckily, first off, ESSEC has an extremely high job placement rate. Immediately after finishing courses. So that's a strong point. And ESSEC, I guess maybe from an international context, it's definitely hard to understand, but ESSEC is quite prestigious in France. So even international students, you know, it's still like, okay, that's a strong. There's a strong name behind that degree,
and so that does help getting a job in France.
So that definitely helps. Not only that, but as well, the alumni network is I think it's often regarded as one of France's best, if not the best, and that's because there's one of the managers at my internship was an ESSEC alumni, and so like there's special job postings that we get to see before others, and that helps. If you're an international student, it is wise to work on your French, at least be able to demonstrate a basic level of understanding. Because, for example, for me, it was more like, okay, you know, if I'm at lunch, like I'm socializing in French, you know, that's how I get to know people, and that definitely helps. It definitely helps. But there's plenty of opportunities here for non-francophones. Plenty of international companies that are looking for people who can not only who can speak English, but who can have a strong grasp on the work environment, and be able to kind of show that, hey, I've already, you know, made an effort to move abroad for studies, for learning, and it's in a foreign country with a different language, and I've asserted myself in and really gone for it. A lot of companies value that here.
Yeah, they appreciate
in
that.
Paris.
Okay, great. Well, now it's time for clichés. Of course, every institution has its own clichés, whether you're snobby, the sporty person, the geek. But now we're going to take we're going to take another look at those clichés. Okay, so over to you guys. What are some of the impressions that people may have of ESSEC before joining?
Like I said, I came in a little more blind maybe than most to the culture around there. Since being there and being able to talk with French people that aren't in the school, as well as international people that are coming in, there's a few cliches. There's one that I've noticed is that so you have like the students coming from Rabat and Concours, and then the students coming from that are admitted from a previous bachelor, whether international or in France, and so it's like, okay, the students in Rabat, like it's kind of, and the French students in general are kind of separate, and it's just like, okay, you have the international students and you have the French students. Well, one for me, I'm one of 3 Americans doing the program full time that I know of, at least. Yeah. At ESSEC, and though I think that number is growing, I think there's more this year that I just haven't met. But I'm like, well, you know, I guess I got to make friends with everybody because I don't have a group to stick to, you know, so easily as everyone else. And I found that, oh no, like the French students are super open, and not just, and I mean, yeah, my French is better now, but even my first year, like I got to know people through group projects and all that, and some people were like, yeah, you know, I kind of see that, and I'm trying to make an effort to get outside of that bubble, because I think it's just easy to go with the people that, you know, speak the same language as you and that have the same background as you. But a lot of people are trying to break that bubble and get to know new people in their classes, at lunch, with associations, all that. And I don't think it's nearly the level of a problem that people can make it out to be.
Okay. And Felix, would you have any cliches about ESSEC?
I think sometimes people might think that students are very strongly interested in the student associations, or are only interested in the student associations. Okay. That might be a cliche that you might hear about, also especially in France, I think. I don't think it's true and not true at the same time. It is true that our students are very much involved in the student association, so they have more than 100 or all kinds of different topics. I hope they do not only come because of the student associations, but to experience ESSEC as a whole, the whole academic part and everything integrated. But it's true that many students are actually participating in the associations. And I think that is also a mirror that also shows that they actually, for many associations, for example, there are humanitarian associations, there are associations about social enterprise, about arts. For example, the musical comedy that performs a musical comedy in Paris every year. So I think it shows that students would like to get involved and either help people or perform something or create something on their own. And that is, I think, a very good thing. So I think it's a cliché that's half true, half not true, but not necessarily neither bad nor good.
It sounds like there's lots of choice there, at least. So
exactly.
Let's take a look at the next question. Felix, do you want to take this?
I am from Turkey. Am I able to do an apprenticeship? Yes. So to explain that in a little bit more detail, so we have this apprenticeship program. That means that as a regular student in the program, you can sign an apprenticeship contract. That means that you work part-time in a company for 2 years, on average 2 days per week, but this can be grouped together in one term, and then in one term you are not at all at the company. Where you can really take a lot of responsibility in that company, create your own mission there, maybe even lead a team in the end. We have around 1/4 of each class that does an apprenticeship program. The company pays a salary and pays for the whole tuition fee, so it's also financially very interesting. And so therefore a 2-year contract. So now if you're an international student from outside the European Union, it used to be the rule that you first need to stay 1 year in France to get a permanent residency permit before you can start the apprenticeship contract. So that's a legal requirement. I think it's at the moment still in place. The government mentioned that they want to change that rule so that even international students can start right away when they come to France. But so the legislation is evolving at the moment. But I think currently it means if you come outside the European Union, you have to spend 1 year at least on the French territory before you can start it. But apart from that, as any other student.
So you're eligible, but you do need to have been in France for a year prior.
Yes, but hopefully this is then going to change.
And if you are a European student, so if you are Spanish, for instance, are you able to start an apprenticeship straight away, or is there the same rule there about the 1 year?
Then you can. They're not directly on the first day because you first have to do the refresher courses. But then, since you have a residency permit, an unlimited one, being a European citizen, then you can start or as soon as you've finished the refresher courses.
Okay, great, cool. Let's take a look at the next question. There we go. It's coming up. Okay, do you want to read this one out?
Sure, sorry. I'm from China. I'm still working on the GMAT, which may take time. And I want to know how many available seats of MIM are there in the next periods for application.
Well, you look at me, so I can answer the question.
That's a number question, so that's on you.
Yes, so first of all, yes, it may take some time to prepare the GMAT, I can confirm. That's a good thing. So in terms of number of seats, so there are 4 different admission sessions throughout the year. There's even one additional, a 5th one, especially for students from selected Chinese universities. This one is already this one and the first regular one is already over, so there are 3 more sessions to come. Typically, in terms of numbers, the 2nd and 3rd one are by far the biggest ones, and then the 1st one, the 4th one, are slightly are smaller. So there's no number of reserved seats. So there's no risk that if you apply to the 4th session, that then they have more or less a chance to get into the program than the other ones. Take your time, prepare the test and the whole admission file, and then submit whenever you are ready. If this is for the 2nd or 3rd session, that's good. That's where the majority applies. If it's for the 4th session, that's good as well. There are a large number of seats also for this session.
Okay, so the places don't get filled up as we go throughout the year. You have
they don't get. I mean, technically, we have an overall number of seats within some flexibility, but we are never in a situation that there are no seats left in the 4th session. Right. We never had. So I think this will happen this year.
Great.
I think I did my GMAT in the December before I came here, and then I applied in January or February and was accepted in April. So if that helps whoever maybe asked that question paint a timeline of what it might look like.
Okay, great.
Of what it can look like because I was still preparing the GMAT at this point in the year before I started.
Okay.
And that's the case for the majority of candidates.
Yes.
Right, so the point is they still have time to get their applications in. Let's have a look at the next one. Felix, could you read that?
Because you get to personalize the program, is it easy to settle in and make friends? What if my friends all end up doing something completely different?
Maybe Matt should take this one. What do you think?
Once again, totally feel the timidity and fear behind this. So there's the programs for that are right before the beginning of the first year for international students to kind of meet and get to know each other. So that definitely helps get a foothold. And so that way you can kind of get to know people as well in your French intensive class before the actual term starts. You can get to know people through there, so you have some opportunities to meet people right from the start, and then and as well if you're in one of the residency halls through ESSEC, you can, which is like the ESSEC housing program. Yeah, you can meet people through there, and then everyone starts doing different things, and so it can be easy. It can be easy to kind of not see people after the first few trimesters, but I found one, I just get opportunities to meet new people, so that's always cool, and two, no, it's like every time I have like a group, I send a Facebook message, hey, here's my schedule, what are you guys looking at? Every time it's like, oh yeah, let's have lunch Thursdays, and I meet with a few people every Thursday or something like that,
okay.
And then I meet people other days in my new classes, and so there's plenty of opportunities to get to know new people. And then as it is, most people live in Paris, so like even if you don't have any aligning schedules, you can still say, hey, let's go hang out at this weekend or whatever in the city.
Yeah. You still have the weekend, even though you're working
exactly.
during the week,
exactly.
at least.
So.
Some classes are on the weekend.
Oh, yes.
The electives, if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so not always, but... so even if you do have even if you choose quite different things from your friends, then, that doesn't pose a problem to your social life as such.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's have a look at the next one. Matt, do you want to read this one?
Sure. Does studying at the Asia campus only set you up for working in Asia afterwards? What if I want to study there, but I don't want to live there after?
What do you think, Felix?
Well, the program is not only set up for those who would like to work in Asia, so there are some components that are specific to people who have a career project in Asia, but this is only a part of it and can be customized. So we have people with different career projects and also from different backgrounds who start the program in Asia. In the first half a year, you have the refresher courses. You also have one or two courses to prepare you for Asia. So what are the specifics of the economy there, specifics of the management style there, and so on. But that's only part of it. And then in the second half of the first year, you can actually choose different tracks that you want to follow. So there's one track which prepares for an Asian career project. It's called Doing Business in Asia. But there's also a track on corporate finance. There is a track on sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And so these topics are not necessarily specific to Asia. And that's also what we want to do. We want to propose a management program with an Asian flavor, but not only for people who would like to work in Asia.
Okay, great. And Matt, I know that you said earlier that people who choose to go to Singapore often might be focusing on finance or accounting. Do you think that's true, Felix? That it sort of does bend you towards that?
Yes, no, yes and no. No, it is much more diverse. So people go all different kinds of backgrounds. It is true that there's a very large finance track. So, for example, a lot of students who start the program in Cergy then do this finance option to go to Singapore. But this is only one option, even though it's a fairly big track. It's only one among other options. So, as I said, there's also the sustainability, entrepreneurship, innovation track. There is a summer track, which is also well known on global manager in Asia, so that is specific to Asia. But there's also an operations management track. So all around the year, there are different specialization tracks on different on different topics. And the two that you cite is probably because the two tracks are the largest ones,
yes.
But not at all exclusive to that.
Okay, great. And now we're going to move on to our next little game where we talk about how would you best define ESSEC. Now, every institution perhaps could have a personality that most embodies it. It's now time for Who Am I? Okay, so as I said, we're going to have 3 celebrities who will appear on this screen, and you have to tell me which celebrity you think most embodies ESSEC. So whether that means via their career path or their personality. So let's take a look at who we have. Okay, so I don't know if you know these people. On the left here, this is Marie-Josée Pérec, who is a 3-time Olympic champion in athletics, but most importantly, is an alumnus of ESSEC. Second of all, we have Didier Deschamps, who is the coach for the French football team and world champion. And of course, Kim Kardashian at the end there, who is an incredible businesswoman, as I'm sure we'd all agree, and a celebrity. So, Matt, over to you. Who do you think would best define ESSEC?
That's tough. Okay. So I'm going to push aside the fact that Marie went to ESSEC. Before you said that, okay. I was along the lines of thinking of her. There's a lot of sporting programs at ESSEC. I know I played volleyball for a little bit. Okay. That was pretty cool. And then the rowing team is pretty well known.
The what team?
The rowing team.
Oh, rowing. Okay, yeah.
They I have a couple friends that row for ESSEC, and they participate in competitions. So it makes sense to me to see someone who's actually a little bit more focused on being well-rounded and a little bit focused on all aspects of life, embodying that spirit of ESSEC. Just like Felix mentioned, it's focused on we adapt to you to make sure you can succeed, and that's what I see in Marie.
Okay, great. Felix, would you agree with that characterization?
That was also my choice, so thank you very much, Matt. Exactly for that reason. That's what we like to do. We would like to help our students to live their passion and what they want to do and succeed in that. And if this is what she did, then that is a great success.
And it also means that she's a winner, which is important. Right, let's have a look at the next question. Matt, could you read this out?
I know that ESSEC is considered a Grande école in France, but does that actually mean anything outside of France? Will people know what I'm talking about?
What do you think?
It depends on where. In the EU, probably. Like I know. Like I have a few friends from, for example, Italy and Germany that are here at ESSEC. And yeah, the Grande écoles are like that people know what you're talking about. Okay. When you say that, people know what the weight behind that term is, and the impact it carries. Outside of that, I'd probably say not as much. It's one reason that I'm focused. I want to stay in Paris, but one reason that I'm focused on it is because this is a very French program, and outside the EU maybe my chances do go down maybe a little bit, at least from my perspective, especially in the States. If I chose to go back to the States. However, I think in China and India and more of those Eastern countries, it's becoming more well known, probably due to the presence in Singapore. So I can't comment on those, but just from the amount of friends I have that are bringing these experiences back to their home countries with them, that does start to carry more weight there.
Felix, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I think generally Grande Ecole, so it is a master in management program of an international global business school. So I think what you see today from the Grande Ecole, what it means, I think it's a specific pedagogical model that you also see with the other Grande Ecole in France, which means a very flexible program, a program that's very close to companies, where you mix actually high quality academic education with concrete experiences, and you go back between the two. I think that's very specific to the French Grande Ecole, which is a more pedagogical model, but it stays in international business school, top business school, as any other business schools in different countries, and they have a high reputation in their home country and abroad. That's the same for any business school, I think.
Okay, great. Let's take a look at the next question. Actually, maybe Matt, you should read this one out as well. I feel like this.
Do you have to live in Cergy? I want to live in central Paris, not in the suburbs.
How do you feel about this?
My first year I lived in Cergy.
Okay.
It is, if you're coming from outside the EU and you need a visa and all that, it is certainly easier to go through ESSEC, the housing program, because a lot of visa requirements are it's helpful when you can say, hey, I'm going to live here, and you have that already set. And ESSEC is very quick to provide that and make sure that you're set up with that, so that way you can get your visa properly. So at least for the first little bit, it might be the easiest and most straightforward choice. After that, I live in Paris now. Okay. It's a little bit of a train ride. I don't mind it coming from the States, having to drive everywhere. Right. I love the train. I get to read or study for an exam or do whatever I need to for my course. Yeah. I can do all that on the train, and that's quite helpful. I have that time set aside, and if you, especially with the way ESSEC schedules, you can do all your courses in 3 days of the week, because of the way the scheduling works. Okay. So that way, you make the most out of every trip to Cergy, and that way you can live in Paris and not have to really keep on your mind, okay, how much time do I have to spend traveling during the week? Right. It's all, you get everything done when you need to.
And what is the commute like, essentially, if you're coming from central Paris going up to Cergy?
So from central Paris, it's about 45 minutes.
Okay, that seems quite reasonable for a capital city, I feel. Okay, cool. So for the first year, there is the option to have accommodation on campus, or at least near campus, in Cergy. And then after that, or even during that first year, you're free to find your own accommodation. You can stay.
You can stay during the whole process at ESSEC if you like. But that's what many students do. Yep. They start with the housing at ESSEC, and then some stay through, but others also during the course of even the first year, or then in the second year, they find friends to share an apartment or something in Paris or wherever. Okay. Then they do this. But then there's also a huge number of students who directly go to Paris, find an apartment, or already have friends there to share something. Okay. They have all different kinds. And
does the school help with finding accommodation at least?
Well, through the ESSEC housing, we provide the housing. Then apart from that, we have some recommendations, but then many of the sharing apartments also goes through contacts between students directly.
Yeah, which makes sense. Okay, cool. Let's have a look at the next one. Felix, could you read this out?
I'm interested in fields such as business analytics and business intelligence. I know that there are electives, chairs, and apprenticeship programs on the France campus, which would help me specialize in those areas, but are the opportunities the same on the Singapore campus? So, the long question, right. So first of all, it is true that we have different possibilities to specialize on these topics. So we have the chair of strategic business analytics and artificial intelligence together with the strategy consulting company Accenture. We have another specialization track on the quantitative part of business analytics. We have different electives around these topics, also on how does artificial intelligence then impact society, the nature of work, business models, and so on. So there we do have an offer. We do not have all specializations on both campuses. So we have some on the French campus and some on the Singapore campus. And for example, the two that I just cited are offered on the French campus. However, when you decide on starting the program either in Singapore or in Cergy, that means where you spend the first part of the program. For someone who starts in Singapore, can very well then come the second year, for example, to France and do the specializations or the chair with Accenture, as an example, there in France. So it is not a question of where you start the program, because anyway you can move between the two campuses. But then, while you are in Singapore, the chair is in France. That's true. They have to be in France to follow it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that was clear.
I think that was good. That was pretty comprehensive. Let's move on to the next one. Matt, please.
There's a lot of choice, but it's a bit overwhelming, and I don't really know what I want to do yet. Does that matter? Do you help us decide what courses to take? There's a lot of choice, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I first started. My focus and career ideas evolved during my time at ESSEC, and so you can. I know lots of people that went in and immediately were like, "This is the chair I'm going to take. These are the classes I want to do, so I can get this internship." They had it all laid out. I honestly didn't. I knew I wanted to do something where I could probably combine maybe my previous work experience with what I was learning, and so through some of the courses at ESSEC, that I was able to evolve that mentality into kind of seeing, okay, I think, and through my internship even, I was able to evolve and see, okay, I think I want to focus on this area, and so now I have ideas for when I start the job hunt this winter. What areas I'm going to look in, what kind of jobs I'm going to look for, and what kind of work I want to do that I think I could excel at, and that idea evolved through the courses I took at ESSEC.
Okay, so when you applied, you don't have to say in advance what electives you'd like to take, or there's nothing set in stone from the beginning.
Not at all.
Great.
That's even the philosophy or the idea of the program with the flexibility is that people come in, they do not have any idea. Well, some do have an idea, but the majority, they do not have an idea what to do.
Okay.
And what is important, that they actually create their own plan and adapt it over time and try out things, do an internship in this field, do an internship in another field to see what interests them. And this is the main point of the flexibility, to force the students to build their own career project over time. It doesn't have to be all in the beginning, but then more and more to think about what am I actually really interested in. And I think that's also an advantage of ESSEC students in the job market, because typically they have a fairly good idea because they tried out different things and say, well, after having tried out different things, I know that I want to do this. And that is something that often companies tell us, that the ESSEC students know what they want, and that's a good thing.
Great.
One of my friends took a few of she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. She took a few of the more maybe humanities-based management courses. Okay. And now she's looking at starting a career in publishing management, which is a very narrow, defined aspect. But she's gotten like a few internships and she really loves it. So
she's found her niche.
Yeah, she found her niche, and like she built that through some of the electives she took at ESSEC.
Okay, great. Let's take a look at the next one. Maybe Felix, you could read this
What
one.
is the most important thing in application? GMAT, GPA, or interview? All three. No, so there are two stages in the application process. There's the first stage, in French it's called admissibilité. So that means we review the files of all the different candidates, and then we decide who to invite to an interview. And then there's a second part in that process, where then the candidates come to do the interview, and then we meet again the admission jury to then decide on the final admission. So if you look at the first phase, the admissibilité, there we look at the whole file. So we look at the motivation letters, at the recommendation letters. We look at the GMAT. So don't neglect the GMAT, but actually spend some time on working on it. That is very important. We look at the bachelor institution. So where did the student study before? Is that an institution that we know? Or an institution, what's the reputation of the specific program at that institution that the candidate took. We look at the GPA, that's also an important part. We also sometimes look at how does the GPA evolve. So for example, a student who had slightly weaker grades in the beginning but then improved a lot, so that's something that we value, for example. And we look at the motivation. Why does someone want to do the program? And it's absolutely not necessary to have a fixed career project, as we just said. It can very well be to explain, say, I don't know yet, I'm probably interested in this or this field, that's fine. What I think is not so good is to say that you have a project and then we don't see any elements or so in the CV that shows that this is actually a real project. So I would not assume a project that's not really a project that's important to the candidate. And so then we get an overall impression of the file, and then we decide on the invitation. And then for the second part, there's the interview, and there we only look, not only, but then the key part of the second part is the interview, and so then we meet again and say, based on the interview result, is that a student that we finally admit or not?
Okay, great. Well, now we're going to move on to our next activity, where we give our student a sentence written on a scrap of paper, and he has to finish that sentence. It's now time for Final Destination. Okay, have a rummage in this fishbowl, grab yourself a piece of paper, and finish the sentence for us.
The best project of the year was going back to my
Choose any of your years.
What?
Choose any of your many years that you've spent.
Oh, okay. No worries. Going back to my spring semester. It was I had to take the strategy core course, and we did a project on Uber Eats. And so it was very cool to see that, how that's evolved in an international context, and plus my group members were really cool, and so I got to make some new friends from that, and then we killed our presentation. So I definitely can't complain about that. But it was really cool to look at very modern business and be able to understand how it works and what it's evolving into, both here in France as well as internationally.
Okay, great. I can take back the bowl for you if you'd like. Get it out of your hair. Right, so let's move on to another question. Matt, do you want to read that out?
Are there any classes on environmental responsibility and sustainability? So that's kind of similar to the idea of corporate social responsibility. So yes, like I said, I've taken I took, in fact, the course that Felix mentioned that just became mandatory. I took it when it was an elective last year, and so one of the ideas behind it was talking about who is a stakeholder in the company. Is it just the shareholders, or is it, or are there other people that care, not just care, but are affected by how the company does and what its results are. And so that was quite helpful, because from an environmental perspective, that was huge. We talked about, for example, Patagonia. That was one of the companies that we talked about. And so, okay, how is their focus on CSR, on the environment in particular for Patagonia? How has that actually helped their company with their brand image? And so it was very interesting to be able to see that. And then as well talk about how, okay, thanks to EU commitments especially, these are becoming so much more important, so much more not just required, but really cared about and emphasized. And so that course, it's good that that's a mandatory course now, because I found it quite helpful to see something that we can talk about. Oh, we care about the environment. You can say the words, but there's clear evidence that there's weight behind it now, that this is important, that it needs to be something that is discussed, and this class, a core course, is discussing it.
Okay, great. And do you want to add anything on that, on the sort of?
Then we also have electives, a lot of different electives to specialize on different parts of sustainability or environmental responsibility, for example, on the mobility, transportation side, or on the entrepreneurship side, so how to create a sustainable business model out of that, or a whole set of different aspects. How is that? What's the importance of that topic in Asia, for example, on our Singapore campus, and what are the specifics there in Asia concerning this topic? So that's then on the electives and specialization side, after you have validated the core course that Matt has mentioned.
Cool. Let's have a look at the next one, Felix.
I'm actually in the process of launching my own startup. Do you support students who have their own projects on the side? Yes, very much. You can actually only encourage students to launch their own projects at the site, or their own company, their own startups. So we do have ESSEC Ventures. That's an incubator that accompanies students. So as As long as you have a somehow credible project and present it to ESSEC Ventures, then you can become part of it, get space there, you have access to contacts with the funding institution or the funding bodies, so you get in contact with the business angels that accompany you, that consult you on the projects, exchange with the other entrepreneurs. We also have incubators that are not exclusive to ESSEC students, so they have people from different fields and backgrounds that come together with who the students can exchange. We also now create more and more specialized incubators. So, for example, we have an incubator specifically on the media industry. We have an incubator specifically on environmental sustainability and environmental responsibility. So that's something very important. And then students who create their own startup can also recognize this or value this investment as part of their professional experience. So that is possible. And we do have a significant number of students who then continue with the startups after they finish the program.
Okay, great. So you do support students through that. If you have a startup or a project on the side, would that count towards credit for the course?
Well, credit not, but part of the work experience part. Since you need to validate at least 12 months of work experience in the program, part of it can be the time that you spent on your entrepreneurial project. Okay,
great. Let's have a look at the next one. I think this one's for you, Matt.
Is there anything you didn't like in this program? So I guess that means in ESSEC as a whole. I'm trying to think. Sometimes it was clear that, for example, in the it was a little bit tough with how, for example, you make a course, you take your courses, you make your schedule and all that. Basically, to give everyone a fair shot at the courses that they need. It's a points-based system.
Okay.
And so sometimes if you have a certain amount of courses in mind, you at the end, if you put a lot of points towards a few courses, you have to take a couple of the courses that maybe aren't the most interesting.
Okay.
And some of them I found like, oh wow, like I've actually been able to get a lot out of. Right now I'm taking labor economics.
Okay.
And that was something I was kind of interested in, but 3 lectures in and I'm actually learning a lot. And then other courses I go in every week and I'm just like, all right, like we'll get it done. And I mean, it's fair to everybody. That way, you get the courses that you need or that you really, really want, that you're really, really interested in. And then you take those other courses and you have to say, all right, this is how it goes. And sometimes you do even still find some gold there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Have a look at the next one, Felix.
How do the exchange semesters work? Which semester is it? And would I miss out on too much on the France campus? Well, there's no specific semester, so you can principally go, as we said, that you're completely flexible in any semester, except for the first one where you have to do the refresher courses. So you can go whenever you like to any of our. So exchange semester then refers to going to another institution abroad. So we have more than 100 institutions with which we have partnerships in the US, in any other country in the world. You can also go, instead of doing an exchange at another institution, you can go to Singapore or go Rabat or not go abroad if you're an international student, and that's not mandatory. So it's up to you to choose that. Typically, if you do go to another institution, you take 4 or 5 credits of course, so 4 or 5 different courses that you take there that count towards your degree at ESSEC. So in terms of missing out, I don't think you miss out much. You will be away for 1 semester. I think that's a great experience. You also see a different institution. That is important. And then in terms of courses, so you come back with 4 or 5 courses that you've done at the partner institution. Also at ESSEC you can take more courses, so you can take up to 5 more courses on top of what you need for graduation. So if you really have the feeling that you missed out on an important class, then you can still take it on top as an additional course. So I don't think you miss much. I think it's a great opportunity to do an exchange or to go to our campuses.
Okay, great. Have a look at the next one. I think this is for you again, Felix.
I want to apply for the double degree with Mexico. What do I need to be able to get in? Do I have to already speak Spanish? Well, that is a good question. So there are 11 international double degrees where you can do the ESSEC Master in Management and the degree at the partner institution at the same time. So you go there for 1 year. So you go to ESSEC, for 1 year, or how much time you need. Then you go 1 year, for example, to Mexico or to the other schools, to then get both degrees. And you have to apply to this double degree from within the program. So as soon as you're admitted to ESSEC, then when you're a student, you can apply for the double degree program. Now, the specific one in Mexico that we have, I don't have all the conditions in mind. So I cannot answer now if you need to speak Spanish or if you have all courses in English or not. I think you might need to speak some Spanish, but I'm really not sure. But we have more information on our website, or also if you send us an email, I can connect you with our mobility office and they have all the information. And
Great, so just keep an eye on the website for that. Matt, do you want to take this one?
I saw on your website that most people stay in France after graduating. Why is that, and at what kind of jobs? I mean, it's France, like it's especially here in Paris. It's so cool, you know. Or even Lyon or Bordeaux or Marseille. Like there's many major cities in France with strong enterprises and industries, and so there's lots of opportunity here, not just here in Paris, but all across the country. And then why is that, and at what kind of jobs? So I mean, I don't know the percentages. Like we've discussed, a lot of people, you know, you have a BNP Paribas here, one of the largest banks in the EU. So finance is quite popular. I know people in marketing as well. That's often popular. Consulting is a big one. For that, usually it's wise to know a lot more French for that, since you're interfacing with customers more often. But you know, like we've discussed here, there's all different kinds of opportunities available at all different companies and at companies that you start on your own. So all different kinds of industries are at your fingertips within a ESSEC degree.
And perhaps you can speak from your own experience. Are you looking to stay in France?
Yeah. So
okay,
that's
so why is that?
I mean, well, once again, you know, it's France. I mean, the easier colloquial term is I just want to do something crazy with my life while I have the chance. But for a more specific standpoint, like I said, there's just a lot of opportunities here, and it's one of the largest economies in the world. Right. So there's you know, any company that you work with here, the CAC 40 companies, for example, you know, the top companies in France, if you work with one of them, that carries everywhere. That you know, that's an experience that's worthwhile to everybody. It's not just like, oh, you worked. I've never heard of France. Like, who's going to say that? Yeah. No. So that's the idea, is that one, I want to make sure I don't lose my French as well. But two, you know, I've invested here and I love it here. I love living here, and I want to work full time and really make the most of this opportunity that I have, thanks to ESSEC.
Maybe I can add one point. That is also, I think, how the program is designed, since it takes 2 years plus the work experience. It is a fairly intensive and rich program, and so that makes it a little bit different, for example, from master management programs that take only a single year, or 10 to 12 months, as sometimes you see in the programs, because we have many international students who come to ESSEC also because they really have the opportunity to do several internships in depth in France, to be able then to stay here and work in France, to acquire French skills, to try out different industries, to create a network, and so on. So I think that is an advantage of a 2-year program with the fairly extensive work experience part, because then you can really prepare to, if that's what you want, to stay and work in France.
Okay, and let's have a look at the next question. Felix, do you want to answer this?
How do the incubators on campus work? Can I join a startup that already exists there, or do I have to come with my own idea? Well, that's a good question. So you can join a startup if you convince the founders that you are of value, and then we are more than happy that you join an existing startup. But you have to convince obviously the startup. So it won't be us telling them they should take you as a candidate, make you a co-founder. That sometimes happens, that students join existing startups because they have a specific expertise, or they get along well with the founding team and they think this person can contribute value. If you don't find it, then you have to come with your own idea. So what the incubators principally do is that as soon as you have a business idea that is somehow credible and is a little bit detailed out, then you can present it to the incubator team, and then if it makes sense, they accept you into the incubator.
Okay, great. Well, that's nearly all from us, and now we're going to go to extra time so we can hear a little bit more about why ESSEC is the place to be. Okay, over to you, Felix. You've got 2 minutes. Time to wrap up some loose ends, perhaps. Tell us about things we didn't get a chance to talk about. Why do you think ESSEC is the place to go?
I think the ESSEC Master Management Program is, as I said, a very flexible program, but that allows a diversity of different careers. So the idea is that you come, that you create your own career project, and that you find your way. So among our alumni, we have artists, we have comedians, we have company CEOs, we have data specialists, we have all kind of different career paths. We have NGO leaders, we have people who work in charity, foundations, and so on. And I think that's the core of ESSEC, help you realize your own project. And that's why we have all the flexibility and all the specializations and the hundreds of electives and so on. And then second part, I think more, since a long time already, but now I see it more and more, ESSEC students would like to get involved, and they would like to work for a cause or find a purpose in their job, and that's why you see in the student associations they are very present. They choose courses like, as you said, environmental, sustainability-related courses and other things. And I think also the ESSEC management program prepares well for the people who would like to get involved, and that's also important.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you to our guests, and thank you to everyone out there who's watching this. We hope this was helpful for you, and we'll see you again soon on Campus Channel.